What is going on, FPL managers? Welcome to a new video from Fantasy Football Scout, and we are joined by, well, an FPL Black Box, FPL Wire crossover today. Mark and Zophar are joining me. How are you guys? We'll start with Mark. Congratulations on 20k subscribers, by the way. How are you feeling ahead of Gameweek 6 deadline?
Thanks, Ted. Yeah, we're really pleased with getting 20k. It's progressed really well, and Az and I are loving it. Obviously, Maz missed the week, but Luke stepped in. It was really good. So, yeah, it's going from strength to strength. Season all right so far. I mean, I was nowhere near 150k this time last year, so I'm quite pleased with where I am. And I guess it's a case of building from here now. So I've got my 3 Chelsea players in, ready for 7. So let's see how it goes.
You're the only person having 3 Chelsea players. Zophar and I don't have any. So, I mean, we've got the Oracle so far, the Chelsea Oracle, to guide us through which Chelsea players to pick from Game Week 7. We'll talk wildcard as well. Zoph, how are you feeling ahead of Game Week 6, mate?
Doing good, Ted. Feeling great and quite confident, strangely enough, going into a fixture against Man City feels strange.
Yeah, no, we were just discussing before the stream about your chances, and I think they're good. Yeah, how do you think Chelsea are going to line up against City? What do you think the score will be?
I think it'll be a similar lineup to what we saw against Spurs in the second half. Mount dropping out, and you'd have Kante slotting in, Kovacic, Jorginho, Kante in midfield, and I think 1-0 or 2-0.
Yeah, interesting. I personally think it will be like a 0-0, but I don't think Chelsea are going to lose. I think that's what you were alluding to. It'd be interesting what Pep does, as we were discussing. But we're going to be discussing our teams this morning. We'll be discussing the burning topics. There's some potentially late team news. Who knows?
Oh, is there any detective work been going on?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we should keep an eye on Twitter, shouldn't we?
Right,
just in case. But let's have a look at one of our teams. Let's start with you, Zophar. What transfer did you make this week?
I shipped Torres and got in Sar with the free transfer. 2
decent fixtures for Sar, Newcastle and Leeds up next. Talk us through the rest of your team.
Hold on, let me just bring it up here. So I think in defense, it's Sanchez in goal, Shaw. Hold on, I have to open up. I don't remember it really.
Well, I can take over. Sanchez in goal, Alexander-Arnold, Shaw, Semedo. How are you feeling for Semedo? Because I've got a Wolves defence, and I'm like, ugh, please. They've got a good run of fixtures. Southampton away should be a good fixture for them, right? They don't score many goals.
They don't, and I'm playing him primarily for the attacking threat. I feel less good about him this week than I did last week. I won't lie about that. But the comforting fact is the manager did say that he's going to continue with a back 3. So Semedo is going to continue playing in that wing-back role. And Southampton generally haven't scored too many goals at home. They've been better away under Hassan Hutler as a general trend. So I'd rather play him over Ben White. I don't know that North London derby really has too many goals, and White is dull.
Oh, he is. That's true, Zoff. When you have him, you try not to play him, don't you? But he's handy to have him reserve, I guess.
I get what you're saying about the number of goals. Arsenal haven't been setting the world alight with number of goals they've been scoring. And, well, I suppose nor really have Spurs. So it's interesting. I think maybe another 0-0. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
as a sub for Rafinha. That's what I'm hoping. Rafinha doesn't play. I don't mind White as a sub there.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Salah vice-captain, Greenwood, Sarr, Rafinha. Hopefully Rafinha starts this week. I'm a Rafinha owner as well. We've got a 50-50 flag on him. I'm gonna say that he starts, maybe, because Bielsa's...
He was pictured arriving at the hotel.
There we go. Yeah. He wasn't mentioned in the press conference explicitly, was he? And I think Bielsa's bias towards playing his first team players as much as possible really lends itself here. So have hope for Rafinha starting. You've kept Ben-Rama. I mean, I transferred him out for a hit last week, so that shows my massive status in FPL, doesn't it? So Ben-Rama against Leeds is a good fixture, isn't it? And you've got Antonio up there as well. Ronaldo captain, was that clear cut for you?
Yep, I have to be careful saying that we have the captain of the anti-Ronaldo fan club here.
I'll tell you what, Zoff, I'm only thankful the Chelsea game's on at the same time and I've got distraction. I can't think about it. Because if that United game was live at 12:30, oh, God, it would be awful. So I'm glad there's Chelsea going on at the same time.
Yep. Yeah, I mean... It's an interesting one, isn't it? Which 3 premiums to have, which to captain. A lot of people will switch over to Lukaku in Game Week 7. I was definitely going to bring him in, but I think I've had a Mason Mount issue, so I've had to transfer him out for Sarr instead. So that puts me back a bit, which means I'm going to have to keep Ronaldo for a bit longer, which is not the end of the world. But Yeah, no, it is what it is. In all, you're feeling pretty good about your teams off. You've got a really decent rank, mate, and it's been going well for you recently. So, yeah.
Zoff, what's the plan for Lukaku? Are you in this club that's waiting until game week 9 to get Lukaku, or are you making a switch in 7? What are you thinking?
I think probably right after the international break. I think United have Leicester that week. Chelsea have Brentford. Probably then. I'm going to let the Everton.
But that's 8 for 8, right? Yes, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm hearing bit by bit. Like if Ronaldo scores today, I think we'll have more people going, I'm going to hold him for a few more game weeks. If Ronaldo blanks today, it'll be, I'm going to Lukaku straight away, I think. So I think a lot depends on today what's going to happen between the swap there.
Ronaldo's fixtures aren't too bad, really, are they?
No,
Aston Villa, Everton, Leicester, who all have been sort of middling. So I don't think it's bad to keep him for the next 3 if you have to. Obviously, Chelsea's are better coming up. So I don't think you have to rush. I think
no, definitely not. I mean, from my perspective, I want people to hold Ronaldo really because I want that differential. I don't know how it's going to go. It's going to be interesting that head to head over the next 3 game weeks because it isn't as the gap in the fixture difficulty isn't that big. You're right.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Zoff, what's your wildcard strategy? Are you aiming not to wildcard in the next couple of weeks? Try and keep it as long as possible for the likes of the Club World Cup and in game week 17 and 18, and maybe the African Cup of Nations at the start of January. Is that right?
So we had a big discussion on this on the wire. It got quite heated with Bakar. So my thing is, I don't know what kind of setup I want. The way things are shaping up, you have all these budget mids who are coming into play. So I'm slowly being convinced that the 3 premiums is doable, but I'm not sure of that yet. I don't know how United are going to perform in the rougher fixtures. So I just don't feel I have the information to be comfortable pulling the trigger yet. And I've said this many times, a wildcard, certain players I'm very afraid to sell now. When your team is doing well, you're almost afraid to wildcard because you're going to end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater to a certain extent. You're shipping perfectly good players. You'll be shipping the likes of Ben Rama, Sarr, who probably could still do well. So I'm not really sure I want to do that yet. So I want to try to hold it for longer.
It's interesting you mentioned the 3 premiums. I think if you have to keep Alexander-Arnold and have Salah, Lukaku, Ronaldo, it's almost a 4-4-2 that you're forced into, right? The other thing for me, the reason why I don't like 3 premiums is the whole effective ownership stuff. And the reason we get value from our premium players by captaining them. And if you've got 3 options instead of 2, you end up with 2 premium options giving you red arrows every week. The guys that you're not captaining. So maybe you could divide that cash into some swords instead of some shields. I'm not 100% sure whether I've made up my mind, but I think probably 2 premiums is the way to go from my perspective, but I definitely won't begrudge anyone from going 3 premiums. But yeah, I think wildcard later on, I think maybe that's all of our strategies, trying to navigate until game week 7 and game week 8, maybe keep the wildcard as long as possible. Definitely not a bad strategy, but if you're wildcarding game week 7, game week 8, it's not a bad strategy either. And Absolutely. I think it depends on your team, of course, and that's the go-to saying. So Zophar, you're a Chelsea supporter. Who are your favourite, if you're going to load up on Chelsea players, who are your favourite 3 that you would go for? Is it just going for the attacking players like Alonso, Reece James, or do you want a bit of solidity in the rotation risks?
I mean, Lukaku picks himself. There's absolutely no doubt about his spot. It's non-negotiable. There's no real contention. And there's no other real attacker that stands out in midfield because Mount is having some issues this season. So probably my second pick would be Alonso because I think he is an attacker. You have to pretty much look at him as a 5.8 midfielder who's playing for Chelsea, almost out of position. And the third would be Rudiger.
Rudiger, interesting. Just because that he's going to play every game and he has that minute element of attacking threat. I know he scored last game, but realistically, how many goals he can score compared to Reece James? So you don't fancy Reece James? That's interesting.
I mean, Alonso and Reece James could be a bit of recency bias. But I'm a bit of an Alonso fanboy from the Conte days. So, and given the choice, I'd always go for Alonso.
The nostalgic pick. Well, he's not really nostalgic anymore. He's coming back into contention. That's a good segue into talking about Mark's team because Mark has all 3. Well, he has Reece James, Alonso, and Lukaku. A preemptive Chelsea triple up. I love that. I really love that because you don't have to do anything from game week 7. You're sorted already.
Yeah, that was the idea. When I got Lukaku early, that wasn't me choosing him over Ronaldo. That was me choosing Lukaku before Ronaldo even turned up. So I kind of accidentally slipped into this. And then I thought, well, I'm not going to get rid of Lukaku for Ronaldo now. I'll hold him and hope he keeps tally with Ronaldo as best he can. We'll see. Today is the big test because I think they could move apart quite in a big way if Ronaldo returns. But I'm hopeful that Lukaku causing a few problems. And then when I looked at my team, I thought, well, everyone's going to be having other issues to fix before game week 7. So if I can try and go into 7 with the free Chelsea, that will mean I can look at other things while others are looking at Chelsea players. Because I've no doubt that most managers will be looking to move in Lukaku, or if they've got Lukaku, they'll be looking to move in at least one Chelsea defender over the next couple of game weeks, right? So I know that. So I can then address the Jota issue, or I could go Cancelo, which I plan to do ahead of game week 8, and get him in for the run of fixtures that City have got, and try and eke out a bit of advantage like that. I've no idea if it's going to help me. If I get a small red arrow this week, I'm confident I can get a couple of strong greens in the next couple of game weeks. That's the idea. Because the thing is, FPL, you sometimes get trapped to look at it as a 1 game week game and go, oh God, I've got a red arrow, what a disaster. But actually, some of my best game weeks have followed on from a red arrow. Because often you can't hope to have a good team for every game week. Often, if you've got a few differentials, I've got Mbeumo, I've got Sarr, I've got Alonso and Lukaku, right? Not a lot of managers have got that kind of combination. I could get a red arrow this week, but it might mean that those differentials get me a green arrow and a bigger one the week after. So I've just got to navigate through these choppy waters this week, I think, and hope that the free Chelsea going into 7 helps me out.
Yeah, definitely. And I only realised that you made your transfer minutes before the stream started.
Well, I'm about to share the stream with one of the biggest Chelsea fans in the community and one of the wisest heads in the community. I'm not going to make that transfer without talking to Zophar, am I? That'd be mad. So yeah, we had he gave me a bit of counselling before the show and convinced me that I was on the right track. He didn't change my mind. He just confirmed I was doing the right thing. I want Alonso for this game because I just think he's so much fun when you got him in your team, right? And if it's making fantasy fun, big fan of the always cheating guys and that philosophy. I didn't want Rudiger in this game. I want Alonso because I think without Mount, he's going to be taking set pieces. And also, if they do play the 3 central midfielders, Kovacic, Kante and Jorginho, I think the wing-backs are going to be pushed up quite a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've got a fairly decent bench other than Parika. So, I mean, even if he doesn't play, you're always going to be covered by Veltman.
Good old Veltman.
Yeah, it's not reliable. I mean, you pick the 2 most attacking Chelsea fullbacks. That's going to be the most fun. So picking Rudiger or whoever is more consistent, I think, is obviously, depending on your strategy, if you want to risk that rotation, then go for it. It's a bit more fun. But Zophar, what do you think about Chilwell's rotation? The threat of Chilwell's rotation with Alonso. What do you think? Is he going to come into it eventually for Chelsea, or is Alonso set for the short term?
So there are 2 aspects to this. Number one, I think Alonso is more suited to playing in a wing-back system than Chilwell is. Because the way it works is the right wing-back keeps the line and the left wing-back always cuts in a little bit. So Alonso gives us additional bit of goal threat. He provides us more of a defensively, more organization also in set pieces and all that stuff. He's useful on corners. But all it takes is really couple of bad performances. And you have a squad that's competitive. It's all it's going to take. But I think it's his spot to lose for now. And in the easier fixtures, as a coach, I definitely want Alonso in there against a Norwich, against a Burnley, against a Brentford. I think he offers more in terms of attack.
Yeah, I think it sometimes goes unnoticed or underappreciated that football is a meritocratic society. And if you play well, you're going to play more games. So that's what we have to notice as FPL managers. It's going to play, even if he gets rotated 1 in 5, 1 in 6 games, it's not the end of the world. And I think Alonso's definitely the best pick. So yeah, I know it's interesting. And it definitely encourages my Alonso's appeal for me potentially next week, which is a potential move on the cards. Mark, what do you think about Jota? I mean, our Simicast owners have been fairly fortunate about being blocked out of bringing in Jota. I definitely would have if I hadn't owned Simicast. But I think you've been pretty unlucky. How long have you owned him for?
I've only had him a week.
Okay.
So I'm happy to show patience with him. He's not turned into a bad player or FPL asset overnight. He's missed a couple of chances. It was unfortunate at Leeds not to get returns. I watched that Leeds game and I didn't have him for that game. And I watched it and thought, wow, I got away with it there. Really got away with it there. So I immediately got him in because I just felt that over the 3 fixtures that he had, including this last one against Brentford, there was a return in it somewhere. It hasn't turned up in the first 2 at Leeds and last week, but I think I fancy him to get something out of Brentford. I think Liverpool would be too much for Brentford. They've shown good defensive resolve, but I think they're about to come up against another level of opponent that will probably get a couple of goals past them. So I don't know if Jota will survive going into game week 7 or 8, though. If Alonso and James, if one of those look like starting next week, Jota out to maybe, I'm kind of looking at Zaha actually, or maybe Gallagher. But Zaha as a differential, I think, for a couple of fixtures could be worth a look because he's on pens and he's always lively. And he's the kind of player that I don't think anyone else is going to look at. And obviously everyone's going Chelsea. So I need to get somebody in who's not only a differential, but someone who could be a little bit explosive as well. And Zaha or Harvey Barnes kind of fit the bill, I think.
It's interesting that the bandwagon mid-price midfielders of old, Jota, Greenwood, Torres, Mason Mount, they're all going a little bit out of favour just through concerns about either their game time or their ability to put the ball in the back of the net, more so than anything else. So it's interesting. I think there's going to be a change of template, a change of dynamic within that midfield bunch. So a lot of people bringing in Sarr this week. He's got a good couple of fixtures. I think we all own him. It's 2 good fixtures though, Newcastle and Leeds, and then we don't know. So I think short-term punt for Sarr. But so Salah captain for you. Are you not tempted to go Antonio?
There's a lot of movement that direction overnight on Twitter, I see. And I certainly see the merits of it. Leeds are kind of decimated, aren't they? If Phillips is playing centre-back, that takes him out of the midfield, and I think Souček and Rice are just going to dominate that. So I do think West Ham, there's a couple of goals in this game for them. So Antonio probably will return. What's in favour of Salah is obviously the clean sheet point, the extra point for the goal, and we definitely know he's on penalties. So Antonio gets none of those. He could be on pens. He's not going to get the clean sheet point. He doesn't get the extra point for a goal. So in a scenario where they both score, which I think is probably the most likely outcome, that both will score, Salah and Antonio's got to get a brace really to beat Salah or get an assist as well. And I just favour Salah in that respect. I think the extra points count.
How much credence do you put into Brentford's defensive solidity? I mean, they've played some fairly mid-table to top of the table sides. They haven't been properly tested against the big 6, the classical big 6 potentially. Do you think that they will unravel against quality sides?
Not unravel, but I think they'll struggle to keep Liverpool out. I think their wing-back system is going to be interesting today because Canos is Salah's side. Canos isn't a defender, really. He's a converted winger. I presume that he's going to get forward less because Salah will probably pin him back on one side and Mane will pin Rico Henry back on the other. I imagine Klopp will play with width, so I think it'll be frustrating because I think Salah and Mane will probably be fairly wide in the game. But I think they're going to get some joy. They're not Rico Henry is a fullback, but I don't think Canos is a fullback, right? And so I think he's going to struggle with Trent and Salah his side. If Trent is back, we expect him to be playing. So, yeah, I can't see a clean sheet for Brentford. I think there's a couple of goals in it for Liverpool, and in that scenario, you've got to back Salah to get something in the form he's in. It's just the way he's playing as well. This isn't Salah who's kind of like frustrating us and blanking. This is Salah who looks like he's enjoying his football and getting regular returns. And I think for that reason, I'm confident he gets something. And I do think there's an assist or a goal in it for Jota too.
Yeah, as they say, if in doubt, Captain Salah, because he's definitely a cut above the rest in terms of his confidence this year, even compared to last year. So I think it's not a bad shout at all. I mean, let's move on to another sort of hot topic, which was best Bamford replacements. I mean, Bamford is out against West Ham, but it's a bit of a tricky subject, isn't it? Because the budget forwards, the mid-price forwards, that has sort of dissipated a little bit. Jimenez underperforming Wolves. Do you think that even though they have good fixtures, that he just is not an option until they can put the ball in the back of the net? Zophar, we'll start with you, mate. What do you think of Jimenez?
I don't think he's a bad pick, but I think it's more of a pick you'd go for because of lack of other options. That's what it's come down to. And I think it's probably the best pick in that bracket given the next few fixtures.
It's a pity that DCL is out. Is there anyone else that you would consider in that price bracket? Like Tony's got some tough fixtures. Anyone else? Like maybe a 1 week.
Armstrong?
Armstrong,
I like Armstrong.
Yeah. What are Southampton's fixtures like? Wolves, Chelsea, Leeds, Burnley. Not too
After
bad.
the break, it's really good. After the break, it's really good. I remember the next 4 right after the break are good.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, Tony is an interesting one. A lot of people transferred him out, but he's got some tough fixtures at the moment. But still, I think he's still good value at 6.5 or whatever he's priced at now.
0.3 now.
Has he gone down?
6.3 now, yeah.
That's the price to pay of him being so highly owned at the start of the season, I suppose. But it's interesting because I think a template will form of Antonio and Lukaku potentially going forwards. But how do you get away from that template? What are your punts? Do you have any outrageous picks for the next few weeks? A Rondon?
I mean, I'm the wrong guy to ask for. I look at my team's ownership. I don't think anyone. I think Semedo is my lowest ownership player.
What is your
midfield?
What's your template rating in live FPL? Is it like 95%?
I think last week it was close to, I think, 85. But now with Torres and Sarr, I think it's going to be similar.
I'm only moderately template. I'm proud of that.
Goodness me.
I know.
I think I was pretty high as well. I think our teams are pretty similar, Zoff. So let's move
I
on
think
to mine.
Two players different. That's what I was just having a look at your team.
Yeah, and I think mine is worse. I've got Marçal instead of Semedo, which I hate. And I only did it because I was planning to downgrade Ronaldo to Lukaku and upgrade Tsimikas to Alonso, and I could only afford that by going Marçal over Semedo. But, I mean, regardless of who you pick from Wolves, the still overarching question is, can they bounce back from their underperformance? Because they're clearly demonstrating excellent attacking stats. It's the conversion from both ends that they're underperforming in. I'm going to bleat on about this again because last time you were on, Mark, we were talking about Wolves' underperformance with the stats and everything.
Oh yeah.
Wolves' underperformance at the moment is minus 7.19 xG delta. That is the biggest underperformance in any instance from last season. There was no team, even Brighton, did not underperform worse than that.
But I said at the time, did say any attack with Traore in it is going to carry on underperforming because he is the biggest underperformer the Premier League has seen for some time, I think.
No, that's definitely what's the word? Not true, because even though his XG is low in previous seasons, he hasn't underperformed too badly.
Not to this level, no.
Not to this level. But it's not just Traore, it's a widespread thing in Wolves. Even Jimenez can't, Trincao can't. Surely something has to click and they come back and start exploding.
Well, Traore and Trincao aren't finishers, right? They're not players that strike me as who can take an opportunity in a clinical fashion, right? Trincao looks a lovely player, but he looks a bit like, Podence rather than Neto. Neto has got a finish on him. Podence, not so much. Trincao probably is below both of those in terms of finishing from what I've seen so far. Maybe he's got it and he's just been unfortunate. But right now, they've got 3 players up front who don't seem to have the end product in terms of putting the ball in the net. They're creating plenty because Trincao and Traore are very creative players. But Jimenez it's a confidence issue. I think once he gets one, then perhaps we'll see it open up a bit for him. But that first goal is taking a long time to arrive, and he's not. I said this last night. He's not showing the tells that make you have confidence in him as well. Like when strikers have that look about them, that first touch is good. They lay off his shot and snap. What we're seeing from Tony, right? Although Tony didn't get goals early on, in the games that I saw, he looked on it, right? He looked confident. He looked like his first touch was assured. His passing was good. He was challenging and winning duels. I don't see that from Jimenez yet. I really don't.
I'm almost becoming desperate in this Wolves situation. I think I had a dream last night that Wolves scored 3 goals and I was going to come on Breakfast Club and go, ha!
You've got Marçal and Traore, right? You sure it was a dream, not a nightmare there, Ted?
Oh, probably. I mean, it's 6 in one, half dozen the other. It could be a nightmare. Maybe it's just my brain trying to justify my terrible moves. But no, they're not cowboy footballers, are they? You don't watch them play football and them kicking the ball into the stands. They can't even hit a barn door. But okay.
At times, Traore's delivery is very questionable, isn't it? Like he does end up overhitting it to the far post quite a lot, and it must be incredibly frustrating for Wolves fans because he looks incredible, beating players one after another until that end product. And 60-70% of the time he doesn't find a man, if probably more than that actually, and that's the problem.
It is a problem. We definitely saw that last week when he switched over to the right wing and just ended up just driving past the left back, crossing it in every single time, every single cross, barring the Jimenez chance that he missed, was just miles over everyone in the middle. So it's such a shame, but he would definitely improve. And he did so much to get a return in that game. I mean, he was unlucky for that ball to deflect onto the crossbar. Jimenez missed a really good opportunity. So I'm just going to be so relieved when he finally gets a return.
Are you gonna sell him before that return comes? That's the issue, though, isn't it?
No, because I'm so biased towards this underperformance, overperformance thing.
Dear.
I'll probably keep him.
Die on that hill.
I will die on this hill. I will keep him for the next 7.
It's not going to end well, I don't think, Ted. I think Zoff and I both agree on this.
I just the rationale is Wolves cannot continue to underperform at this level. From all of the mathematical models last season, it just shows that they will turn it around at some point. And maybe I will die on my hill at game week 37 going, this is the game week, but at least I've stuck to my principles.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah,
maybe that's a bit strong. Maybe I will cave at some point, but who knows? Ronaldo captain for me. I think the home fixture is the one. Like Zoff said, it's just the bias, and I think Ronaldo hasn't stopped scoring since he joined Man United. It's difficult to overthink. But like you said, Mark, picking a forward as your captain gives you 1 less point per goal. No clean sheet points and all that sort of stuff. So you have to basically expect them to get 1 more return to make it justifiable over the likes of Salah. But I think I'm not going to overthink it. I think I've set this strategy in my mind that I want to captain the premium player at home in an easy fixture, and I'm just going to try and stick to that.
I think that's where Lukaku has a bit of an edge on Ronaldo in that he's got an assist in him, whereas Ronaldo, I don't know if he has. So Lukaku can match the midfielders with a goal and an assist, and I do think he got 11 assists last season. You look at the Chelsea team, if Havertz, Werner and Mount can up their game, Lukaku should go away with 10 assists this season. So
yeah, they seem to be incredibly different players, Ronaldo and Lukaku. Ronaldo is almost a goal hanger in terms of the proximity to the goal. He's shooting the closest out of any player in the league. So you want him to be on that penalty spot trying to put the ball in the back of the net, where Lukaku tends to hold off a little bit and shoot from a bit further out. But I think he's, as you say, he's a bit more variable. He's a bit more dynamic, able to interchange with Chelsea's play a little bit more. So more strings to his bow, it seems. I can't believe I just said that about Ronaldo not being a...
I mean, 5 years ago, who would have thought they both would have gravitated towards this way, right? You'd always expect Lukaku to be the one hanging near the goal. Ronaldo would be the one creating. It's just different how they've evolved.
He's not shooting from outside the box, is he, Ted? That's what surprised me. Like for Juventus last season, he had a lot of shots from outside the box. It doesn't look like that's going to happen for United. He's just living in that penalty area, isn't he?
Absolutely, and that's probably sustainable to him playing, more games. 37 out of 38 games. If he's not asked or required to do much in a game, just live in the penalty box.
Or he can't be asked, yeah, more like it, yeah.
Oh, I don't think it's that. Have you seen the desire? Oh my goodness me.
Well, I'm chairman of the anti-Ronaldo club. I've got to get a dig in.
Are you ever going to bring Ronaldo in this season, Mark?
I'm going to have to, aren't I, reluctantly, in game week 14. I think, like Zoff said with the wild card, I'm going to look at the freemiums then when United's fixtures turn, because I think I'm going to be loath to get rid of Lukaku, yeah. So we'll see by then. I guess we'll have more data on the budget picks and whether or not they're like Gallagher, for example. He looks like he could, show potential all season in the role he's got on set pieces as well. But by 14, we'll know, right? We know for sure now.
What do we think about Palace in general? They've had a couple of good game weeks, but are we getting ahead of ourselves a little bit? It's still Palace. I know it's Vieira trying to encourage attacking play, but are we getting ahead of ourselves with the Zophar and the Gallagher bringing in?
The Traores.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Well, Zaha's got a bit of that in him, isn't he? He's not an assured finisher, is he, by any chance? So he's really frustrating when you own him. I think with the players they've got, they've got Eze to come in. They've got a lot of good attacking players, and the way that Vieira's setting them up, he wants to show the fans some expansive attacking football. So I think they're going to offer us more goals and assists. I would say they have already. they performed mid-table for all the data, considering they had the worst fixtures to begin with, I think, of any team. If you look at the first 5, I think they're near the bottom of the ticker. So they've overachieved at the moment. So I'm reserving my judgment, but I'm cautiously optimistic there's some value there.
1 minute before the deadline, we haven't had any early team news, I don't think. So it seems to be. It seems to be okay.
I prefer it like that, to be honest.
Yeah, nice and relaxed. It's interesting they moved the deadline an hour and a half beforehand to quell this, I suppose. But it's good. It's good. It makes it less.
It does. A lot of time zones is very unfair to people who play in different time zones. I have a brother who stays in New Zealand. He has to get up at 3 a.m. to check team news before. It's not practical on a Saturday night. Or who's going to do that? Or like on a Friday night.
And at the end of the day, FPL is an international game, and it's probably the best move for it. It makes it less stressful for everyone involved. So that's good. The deadline is up. Welcome to Gameweek 6, gentlemen.
Goodness, I feel good. I feel good it's over. This is going to be a bad one for me. I think it's going to be a bit of a rough ride, depending on.
I think Lukaku's going to get a brace for you, Mark.
Oh, that'd be amazing. If he matches him, it'd be crazy. But there might be something in it for him. I do think Chelsea win the game, so I'm hoping there's something in it for him. But
it's not so usual that we have the big game of the weekend at the 12:30 Saturday kickoff, is it? So it takes a bit of adjusting. It's only an hour and a half away. Can't believe it.
Yeah, well, my game week could be decided in these first kickoffs, right? Because if Ronaldo does a lot of damage and Chelsea concede a goal, and Ronaldo and Lukaku blanks, I'm in a lot of trouble straight away. So then I'm looking forward to watching Salah though, where he's not actually the most captain player. I think Ronaldo would be most captained, and having Salah as your captain it's not often, is it, Zoff, that we have Salah captain and he makes a difference to your rank if he scores, right? So this will be quite nice, I think.
Right. We used to say that back in the day. Anytime you have Aguero as a differential captain, it's almost like a blessing. It's very much the case with Salah today.
Yeah, so I'll really enjoy that game, I think.
I wonder whether his effective ownership will be over 100% still. I don't know. I don't know how these things work. I don't think so.
Just because you have all the Ronaldo fanboys who probably will go with him.
Yeah, including me, including you, Zoff.
I think you've got to. If you've got Ronaldo, you've got to go him as captain. I would if I was in. So I don't think you can you can say that. I don't think Salah is the better captain. I think Ronaldo is more likely to return. But I think Salah, if he does return, is more likely to score bigger, I think. So I think it's a classic toss-up, isn't it, between those two factors?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, hope Jota gets on the scoreboard for you this week, because Jota owners have been super unlucky, in my opinion.
I think this week is probably the third time's a charm.
Yeah. What are you guys doing with Greenwood? I see you both got him. Have you kind of got feelings on what to do with him?
I think I'm just going to keep him until he starts getting benched. There's nothing that's been suggested that he will start getting benched soon, and as soon as he starts, as long as he keeps starting, then that's absolutely fine for me. Obviously, Man United's fixtures getting worse is another reason to get rid. But at the meantime, I think I've got bigger fires to fight and more Chelsea players to bring in. That's the priority, I'd say.
Yep, same for me. I think I'm going to wait till at least the international break. I think he's not being called up for England again, so he's probably going to play the Leicester game as well on the other side of the international break and take it from there.
It's a bit like the Jota situation, though, isn't it? Like, he's gone a couple of games and he's too good to take out your team. You're just waiting for that return. And I think it's the same with all three of them. Torres, Jota and Greenwood are all in the same boat. It's like they've disappointed, but the potential's so great for all three of them.
Yeah, I think that I saw some stats saying that Greenwood's output or his attacking stats have dissipated ever since Ronaldo came into the team. Which is something to be wary of course. But even if he's playing in that team, he's always going to have shots, and he's always clinical. He's proven in the last few years that he.
Just a second, I have to let my dog in.
Go for it. Yeah, he's always proven how clinical he is. So I think if Ronaldo does have that pass in him, that cross pass, rather than shooting,
I do think Greenwood was a bit fortunate with his early returns, though. I mean, that's the thing. So he's done well at the start. Through some errors, defensive errors and goalkeeper errors. So everything he shot seemed to go in the first few game weeks. But he wasn't having a high volume of shots before Ronaldo came. And now it's dipped a little bit more. I think that's predictable, though. When you're up front with Ronaldo, you're going to be thinking first priority, get him the ball, I guess, because when you're 19 years old and playing with the greatest footballer of all time, it's going to change the way you approach a match. And you're not always going to cut inside and shoot. It's exactly what I thought would happen. And it's shown to be the case when Ronaldo's hogging the shots. But yeah, I probably would hold him too at the moment until the fixtures get worse or until one of Torres and Jota show up as an option.
I guess it's that mindset of you don't want to annoy this, mega star in this team by not passing to him. But how different is it to playing with the likes of Bruno Fernandes? I suppose he's playing in a different position, so he's not all cut out for goals. He's trying to open up the team, assist everyone. Maybe that role reversal, where Greenwood is now expected to feed Ronaldo, is a different mindset.
In my head, I'm kind of thinking in the dressing room, it's been a bit like, Pele in Escape to Victory. Get me the ball and I go here, 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 and then I score. And I kind of imagine that's what it's like in the dressing room. It's like, just get Ronaldo the ball and don't think about doing anything other than that. But I'm sure that's not the case. But you do wonder whether how much of a presence Ronaldo is and how much United are playing to his strengths or trying to.
Exactly that. I'm a bit annoyed by Mason Mount's injury, let's just say that, because I'm going to end up with one Chelsea player next week instead of 3, and that sort of annoyed me. Like, what?
Southampton's not an easy game, though. I don't think that's immediately big returns for Chelsea. They've got quite a resilient defence, haven't they? And they've shown it at City, so I don't think you're going to miss out.
Stephens is out. That's the only thing I'm wondering whether Stephens out will make a difference.
Possibly, yeah. He's done better than I expected. I think Southampton actually are a sleeper team in terms of FPL. You mentioned Armstrong. I think, he's definitely got potential to be an asset for us. It's just not happened yet. But I think if I was looking at players that are going to break out in the next 3 or 4 weeks, he'd be on the list, yeah.
Swings and roundabouts. But yeah, I completely agree with you about Southampton. They've been pretty strong, particularly at home. That United game in Gameweek 2 was just set the precedent after everyone's expectations were so low for Southampton, because obviously they sold Danny Ings and the expectation is that they...
When they sold Vestergaard, I thought they were going to crumble a bit, but credit to Ralph.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they perform against Chelsea. I think Chelsea still win that game, though, but maybe not as convincing as we potentially think.
It's also after the Juve game, right? Let's say we go up a goal or two, you probably see Lukaku get stuck, because it's all about the week that we're having. We play City, Juventus, and Southampton. So any rotation will definitely be in that Southampton game.
Yeah, that Juventus team sheet is going to be vital as well, isn't it? I mean, I think I'll get Reece James in the Southampton game. I'm not sure I'm going to get Alonso, so we'll see.
Do you mean you'll start him ahead of Alonso in that game?
Oh, I think I'll have to, yeah, because I think Reece James is much more likely to start. I think Chilwell looks to be on the team sheet for Southampton. I would expect. I mean, he's got to give him a chance at some point. But then if Chilwell plays, James has got to play, because they need someone more attacking on one of the sides. And I think, so I'm going to be fortunate, I think, in that when Alonso doesn't play, James will. But then, I set out to try and get 2 Chelsea defenders, and how many times am I going to have that? So I think eventually I will have to give in and go, I'll get Rudiger, but I'll go for it just for this week.
That seems crazy that you've got the 2 Chelsea wing backs and you're going to rotate them from one bench to the other. That seems mental.
I don't want to. I want them both to play, but I don't think I'm going to get that for a few weeks. I think ultimately they're the first 2 choice wing backs, though.
Yeah, at least you can cover them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you're going to bring in Cancelo for Luke Shaw eventually and play a 4-4-2?
Yeah, that's the plan. So, I mean, City have got a run of 3 that look really strong, and Cancelo looks to be almost an ever-present. So if it looks like Cancelo starts a Burnley game, he's coming in for me, because I think that's, if you're not going to go Torres, then you need some cover, I think, of City for that run of 3. And Cancelo's probably next best, because he's got some attacking potential, and the clean sheets look, 5 shots on target conceded. It's crazy. I think that number will go up today, but I still think it's crazy. I mean, we said on Black Box that Chelsea and City defences are such a gift to us, along with Trent. I think it's difficult to justify not getting 3 defenders along with Trent that are made up of 1 City and 2 Chelsea at the moment. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, and it's something that we don't tend to utilise that much, really. The Chelsea and City defensive.
Or premium defenders in general. This is something Fabio Borges mentioned in one of his interviews on Scout, that he thinks that these premium defenders are undervalued. At 5.5 or 6.5, they offer much more than the midfield guys at the same price would. So he usually see his teams, he always goes for a 4-3-3 or something of that sort.
Yeah, when you look at Alonso and you look at James, 5.5 at the start of the season, even Diaz at 6, he really should have been 6.5. I think if you looked at it now, you go, all of them are 0.5 undervalued. So,
Absolutely.
at least, I mean, ideally, you look at Alonso now and say he should be 7, shouldn't he? Right? If he's playing 4 games out of 5 and given the attacking potential he's got.
He was, I think, number 7 to the season, right? I think Conte's second season, I think he was 7-ish, if I remember right.
So
it's also worth noting, I'd say, that we do go through this every single year where the attention turns to the defence, and then there's a load of influx of midfield options that we all have to switch to. So I would say it's all about the variation in the bandwagoning each season, I'd say. But I think a foursome of Alexander-Arnold, Cancelo, Reece James and Alonso is probably the best you can get in that back line. Pretty frightening. Frightening.
But I'm not advocating not having 5 active midfielders. I'm still going to have 5 midfielders that I could play.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I'm not advocating getting Sissoko and getting a 4-5 in midfield, because I still think the midfield is where you want to be making. Once I've got Cancelo in, all my transfers are going to be concentrated on midfield, or I will move and get Tony in up front and maybe go to a 4 or 5 in midfield, because I really like Tony. I think he's going to get between 12 and 15 goals this season, and sooner or later I think I'm going to have to get back on him, but I don't know when that'll be yet.
Yeah, Tony's an interesting one. I had a conversation with Luke at the start of the season. He said if he gets 10 goals in the season, he's still going to be good value at 6.5. The question with him is, when does he get those goals? If you can get a period where he is predictably scoring in a run of form rather than 1 every 5 games, then he becomes a difficult option to own, because you have to keep him for the entire season, which practically in an FPL season is impossible. So it is an interesting one. Brentford is still an enigma. I think we need some more information to properly deduce whether they are a legitimately really good team or not. Because it's almost a reverse of what we saw last season in the Championship. They're free-flowing attacking football, not so much defensive solidity. It's almost reversed this season so far.
Not exactly, because they had the lowest XG conceded in the Championship as well. They conceded a lot more, but in terms of stats-wise, as you like to talk about the XG underperformance, they're pretty much matching up to it.
Yeah, I just like what Tony and Mboma have got. They've got a really good relationship. They play very close together. I think there's, that's why I'm holding Mboma at the moment, at least until I get Tony.
Yeah. No, the reason I said that, Zoff, was there was more emphasis on the Watford defence, because when the new manager came in towards the end of last season. But it was interesting that no one really loaded up on Brentford defenders instead. I guess promoted teams are a bit of a risk regardless.
I think we all had a look at Pinnock, didn't we? I thought we felt goal threat at set pieces, and that hasn't shown up yet. None of the centre backs have got a goaler from a set piece yet, but that's coming as well. So I think as soon as one of them gets a goal, there'll be a bandwagon again. So we'll see.
We all looked at Pinnock. Crikey, you're giving me far too much credit.
Well, he got 5 goals, didn't he, in the Championship? I think he did really well with a goal threat. So I think of all the Brentford defenders, he tempted me, but I just wasn't sure what we were going to get. So
he didn't even cross my mind, Mark.
Okay, fair enough.
Rico Henry was the one I was looking at. That's how Luke flagged up, because he's been playing in the wing back role, but he's been given significantly less license now to get forward.
Crazy stuff. Well, I think that was a good chat, gents. We've got 15 minutes till team news. I don't think we'll hang around, though. I've got stuff to do today. Yes.
Is Rockstar going to break anything at 11:15? Maybe.
Probably should. Who are you nervous about? I think the players you got. I think we've got. Lukaku, who should be fine.
Yeah, I think Alonso will start. Yeah, okay. I'll be interested.
James, really.
Yeah, I wonder whether James will get the nod. I do think he'll probably keep Christensen in the team and play Azpilicueta, but we'll see.
Super Jack. So it looks like maybe Grealish is starting.
There's been some rumors. I got some text from my Pakar and late rise as well. They've been saying that Greenwood, Grealish, and Ronaldo
will be starting. Well, thank goodness for me.
You'd hope, wouldn't you? That would be a bombshell if those 3 weren't playing. So yeah. Hopefully, green arrows for us all, but we'll see. I'll take a small red. And thanks, Zoff, for your advice.
That could be your drink tonight, Mark. Small red. Just to console yourself.
That will do. Very nicely indeed, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining me, gents. I think that was a good stream. Let's keep an eye on the team news. 15 minutes until that comes out. But we'll leave it there. And best of luck for Game Week 6 to both of you.
Best of
See
luck.
you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Cheers, Ted.